You ever drive through Kentucky at night? Endless stretches of blacktop, the woods pressing in on either side, and not a single pair of headlights for miles. There's a silence on those roads that feels unnatural, like the trees themselves are holding their breath, waiting for you to pass. People think road trips are all freedom and fun till they end up on one of these highways. Because out here, you can take the wrong turn. Pull over for just a second, or even slow down to help someone, and that's when the nightmare begins. Tonight, we're diving into 4 true road trip encounters from Kentucky. Stories from travelers who swear what they saw will haunt them forever. These aren't legends passed down through whispers. These are real accounts. From people who were just like you, driving home, when the road showed them something they can't explain. If you're new here to Something Scray, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now. Because we share the kind of horror that keeps you checking your rearview mirror long after the video ends. Turn off the lights, get comfortable, and remember, don't look away from the road. Story 1, the man at the Salt River Bridge. I was 19 the first time I ever heard about the Salt River Bridge. If you're not from Kentucky, you might not know it. It's an old 2-lane bridge that stretches over a dark, sluggish river near Shepherdsville. The road bends right into it, so by the time you see the bridge, you're already on it. By day, it's unremarkable, just rusted guardrails and weathered wood slats under your tires, but by night, locals say it's something else entirely. I didn't believe any of it, of course. Ghost stories, campfire, nonsense. Until one night, coming back from Louisville, I learned the hard way why so many people refuse to drive that stretch after dark. It was late, probably close to midnight. The highway was empty, the kind of empty where your headlights carve tunnels of light into a world that doesn't feel real. I was dead tired, the hum of the tires lulling me into that trance every driver knows. I should have stayed on I-65, but I thought taking a smaller road would cut a little time. That choice. It still sits in my stomach like a weight. I remember the first sign that something was wrong. My phone lost service. Not unusual out there, but still enough to make me feel isolated. The air in the car felt heavier, like the silence outside was pressing against the windows. Then I saw the bridge. It rose out of the dark, that iron frame catching the glow of my headlights. But what froze me wasn't the bridge, it was the figure standing at the start of it. A man. At least, I thought it was a man. He stood off to the side, half in shadow, waving his arm like he needed help. He wasn't frantic, just beckoning. My first instinct was to drive past. Every nerve in my body screamed, "Don't stop." But you have to understand, I was raised to help people on the road. My dad always said you never leave someone stranded, not out here. So against every shred of instinct, I slowed. My headlights washed over him. He was pale, too pale. His clothes looked wrong, like they'd been soaked and dried stiff. He didn't move toward me. He just stood there, watching. I rolled my window down a few inches, my hand ready on the wheel. "You okay, man?" I called out. He leaned slightly toward the car, just enough for me to see his face clearly. That's when my stomach turned to ice. His eyes, they didn't look alive. Clouded over, like pale glass, and his lips, cracked and gray, parted just enough for him to speak. "Do you know if the river's high tonight?" That's what he asked me. Not for a ride, not for help. Just that one question, spoken in a voice that sounded like it had been dragged up from underwater. Before I could even respond, a car horn blared behind me. I jumped, heart slamming in my chest. I glanced in the rearview headlights. Someone else had come up fast, and I'd been stopped in the middle of the road. When I looked back toward the man, he was gone, vanished, not walking away, not slipping into the dark. Just gone. I panicked, slammed the window shut, and hit the gas so hard the tires squealed. I tore across that bridge with my eyes locked straight ahead. The car behind me followed close, and for the first time, I was grateful not to be alone. When I finally pulled into a lit gas station 15 minutes later, I sat in the lot with the engine running, hands trembling on the wheel. I kept asking myself what I saw, who I saw, but deep down I knew. Later that week, I told a coworker what happened. He grew quiet, his face tight. Then he told me a story that made my skin crawl. Back in the 1970s, a man drove off that same bridge late at night. They said he misjudged the turn. The river was high, and his car sank before anyone could help. By the time they pulled him out, days later, his body was pale, bloated, and his eyes had gone cloudy from the water since then. People swear they've seen him standing by the bridge asking the same question. Do you know if the river's high tonight? Some say he's looking for someone to warn him before he drowns again. Others believe he's trying to pull someone else down with him. I don't know which is true. All I know is this: if you're ever driving through Shepherdsville at night, and you see a man standing by the Salt River Bridge, do not slow down. Do not roll your window down, because once you look into those pale, drowned eyes, you'll understand what I did. That bridge isn't just a piece of Kentucky road. It's a grave marker. And some graves don't stay buried. Story 2. The gas station that wasn't there. I used to think running out of gas was just a nuisance. Inconvenient, sure, but not the kind of thing that could scar you for life. That was before a trip through eastern Kentucky near Hazard, when my best friend and I stumbled into something that should never have been there. It was the summer of 2014. I remember because it was hot, so hot, the asphalt shimmered like a mirage. My best friend Eliza and I had decided to take a road trip through Kentucky's back roads. Avoiding the interstate as much as possible, we wanted adventure, something different. We got it. Just not the kind we had in mind. By the time the sun went down, we realized we'd miscalculated. We'd been driving for hours, our gas gauge dipping dangerously low, and not a town in sight. The roads twisted through dark mountains, lined with endless trees. No cell service. No signs of life. Just the two of us, the hum of the engine, the creeping dread of what might happen if the car sputtered out in the middle of nowhere. That's when we saw it, up ahead. Glowing faintly against the black trees was a small gas station. It looked old, like something out of a 1950s postcard. A single building with peeling white paint, a couple of pumps out front under a buzzing neon sign. The word gas flickered weakly in red. Relief washed over us so hard I almost laughed. See? Eliza grinned, pointing. We're saved. I pulled in, gravel crunching under the tires. The air smelled faintly of oil and dust. The place was quiet, too quiet, but the pumps looked intact. As I stepped out of the car, the night air hit me, sticky and warm. A single overhead light hummed above, casting everything in a sickly yellow glow. The station door creaked open, and out stepped an attendant. He was an older man, maybe late 60s, with thinning gray hair and coveralls that looked worn but clean. He didn't smile, didn't greet us, just stood there watching. "Evenin'," I called, trying to sound casual. "We almost ran out back there." The man nodded slowly, then motioned toward the pumps. His movements were stiff, deliberate, like he was underwater. I slid my card into the reader, but it didn't work. No beep, no error message, just nothing. The man stepped closer. His eyes were glassy, expression unreadable. Finally, in a low, gravelly voice, he said, "Cash only." It struck me as odd, but I happened to have some bills folded in my pocket. I handed him 20, and he gave a short nod before turning back toward the small office as I pumped the gas. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The station was too clean, too untouched, as if it had been frozen in time. No litter, no signs of wear, except for the paint. Even the old advertisements plastered to the windows looked like they'd been freshly printed decades ago. Inside the car, Eliza whispered, "Does this place feel weird to you?" I glanced around. The silence was suffocating. No crickets, no frogs, no night sounds at all. Just that buzzing neon sign and the low hum of the overhead light. "Yeah," I muttered. "Let's just get out of here." When the tank clicked full, I capped it quickly, climbed in, and started the engine. The man had returned, standing by the doorway again, his figure half in shadow. He raised one hand not to wave goodbye, but almost like a slow salute. His face never changed, not once. We drove off, the gravel spitting under our tires. For the first few minutes, relief kept us talking. We joked about how creepy the guy was, about how we'd lucked out finding gas in the middle of nowhere. But then Eliza looked out the back window. "Alex," she said softly, "where is it?" I frowned, glancing in the rearview mirror. The road stretched behind us, pitch black, tree-lined. No glow of neon, no gas station, nothing. I slowed, then pulled over, heart hammering. We just left it. It has to be right there. But it wasn't. We both got out, peering back into the darkness. The only sounds now were the normal ones, the chirp of crickets, the rustle of leaves in the warm breeze. No light, no building. The gas station was gone. We didn't say much after that. We just got back in the car and drove, too shaken to process it. For another 20 miles, the gauge stayed full. The road winding endlessly through the mountains, until finally we reached a small real town with a very real, very modern gas station, inside, still trembling. We asked the clerk if there was another gas station nearby. Maybe an older one out on the road we'd just driven. The woman behind the counter gave us a strange look. Then she pulled out a laminated newspaper clipping pinned to the bulletin board. It was yellowed and old, with a black and white photo. The headline read, "Local gas station destroyed in fire. 1981. The picture showed the exact same building we'd just stopped at. Same pumps. Same flickering sign. And in the photo, standing outside the doorway, was the same attendant. He'd died in the fire. Trapped inside when the roof caved in, the woman saw the blood drain from our faces. She nodded grimly like she'd seen this reaction before. "You're not the first," she said. "Folks say that station still shows up now and then. Usually when people are running on empty." We didn't speak the whole way back to the motel. We couldn't. The image of that man's glassy eyes, the way he'd raised his hand as we left it played over and over in my mind. And here's the part that still chills me. Years later, when I woke up the next morning, I checked my wallet. I'd given him a 20, but it was back, folded neatly in my pocket. To this day, I don't know if we were saved by something benevolent, or if we just stumbled into a moment that shouldn't exist. What I do know is this: the next time your gas runs low on a Kentucky back road, and a glowing station appears out of nowhere, keep driving, because sometimes the help you find isn't meant for the living. Story 3. The woman in the ditch. There are some things you see on the road that never leave you. Some sights bury themselves so deep in your mind that every time you close your eyes, they come crawling back. I've been a trucker for over 20 years, and I've hauled through every stretch of Kentucky highway you can imagine. Fog, storms, deer leaping out at the last second. I thought I'd seen it all. Until one night on I-65 southbound, I saw something I still can't explain. Something that made me question whether the road itself was trying to end me. It was a Tuesday in late September. The air was still hot during the day, but at night the chills set in. I was hauling freight from Louisville down toward Bowling Green, a run I'd done dozens of times. The road was quiet, too quiet, really. Not a lot of traffic, not even other truckers, which is unusual for that stretch. About an hour past midnight, with the radio low and my headlights cutting through a thin mist, I caught movement in the corner of my eye. To the right of the road, just past the guardrail, something was crawling out of the ditch. At first I thought it was a deer, maybe injured, dragging itself out of the weeds. But as my lights hit it, I realized it wasn't an animal. It was a woman. Her hair hung in dark tangles, plastered to her face. Her clothes were shredded, mud-caked, and clinging to her thin frame. She moved wrong, jerky, uneven, her arms and legs bending at odd angles, like she wasn't used to controlling them. My stomach dropped. I hit the brakes hard, my rig shuddering as the trailer groaned behind me. Gravel spat under my tires as I slowed, my eyes locked on her. She lifted her head, and for a moment our eyes met. Or at least, I think they did. Her face was smeared with dirt, but I could see her lips moving, opening and closing like she was trying to speak. No sound came out. Just the silent shape of words, "Help me." That's what I thought she was saying. Over and over, mouthing it, desperate. Against every bit of instinct screaming in my chest, I started to pull over. I mean, what else could I do? You don't just drive past someone like that. She could have been a victim of a hit-and-run dumped there. God knows what. But before I could bring the truck to a full stop, she moved fast, too fast. 1 second she was dragging herself toward the road, the next she was up, sprinting at me with this inhuman, lurching speed. Her arms stretched forward, her head jerking side to side. And then she slammed both palms against my driver's side window. I screamed. I'm not ashamed to admit it. My hands fumbled for the gear, my foot slamming the accelerator so hard I felt the engine lurch. The truck roared forward, and for a terrifying moment, I swear she kept pace. Her face pressed against the glass, mouth opening wider than it should have. Still trying to speak, and then she was gone, not thrown off, not left behind. Justin, the road ahead was empty. My rearview mirror showed nothing but darkness. My pulse hammered so hard I thought I might black out. I didn't stop until I reached a well-lit rest area, 20 miles down the road. I parked, crooked, jumped out, and staggered away from the cab, gasping like I'd just outrun death itself. Other drivers looked at me like I'd lost my mind, and maybe I had. For the rest of the night, I couldn't shake it. The way she moved, the way her face pressed against the glass, the way her lips silently formed those words. I told myself I'd imagined it, that I was tired, seeing things. But deep down, I knew better. A few weeks later, I was swapping stories with some other truckers at a diner outside Elizabethtown. One of the older guys, a man named Ray, was telling us about the weird things you see on the job. I decided to mention what I saw. Just a little bit, not the whole thing. Just enough to test the waters, the second I said a woman in the ditch. The table went silent. Ray leaned back, his expression dark. You saw her too, didn't you? I froze. What do you mean? He nodded slowly, like he'd been waiting for me to say it. The ditch woman. She's been out there for decades. No one knows what she is. Some say she was a hitchhiker who got hit and left for dead. Others say she's something older, something tied to the land. But every trucker who runs that stretch long enough eventually sees her. The others nodded, their faces grim. One man swore he'd seen her crawl across all 4 lanes without a sound. Another said she chased his rig for half a mile before vanishing. No one laughed. No one called me crazy. They just sat there, trading those haunted looks that only people who've seen the same nightmare can share. I left the diner with a pit in my stomach, realizing this wasn't just a hallucination or a story. She was real lore, at least. Real enough that others had seen her too. I've driven that stretch of I-65 dozens of times since. And every single time, I keep my eyes glued to the road, my hands white-knuckled on the wheel. If I catch the faintest flicker of movement in the ditch, I don't look. I don't slow, because I know what waits there. And here's the worst part. Some nights, when I'm dead tired and the highway is empty, I can almost hear it. That soft thump of hands on glass. That silent mouth, shaping the words I'll never forget, help me. But if you do, if you stop to help her, you might not make it back onto the road. Story 4. The Vanishing Car on Highway 421. Highway 421 cuts through the Kentucky mountains like a knife. If you've ever driven it at night, you know what I mean. Tight curves, steep drop-offs, and long stretches of road where you won't see another soul for miles. People say the road has a curse, and if you're unlucky, you'll find out why. For Callie and Patrick, a newlywed couple driving south toward Harlan, Highway 421 became the place. They learned that not every danger on the road has a driver behind the wheel. It was late spring of 2019, around 10 at night. They'd been at a family gathering in Richmond and were heading home through the mountains. Callie remembers how clear the night was, the moon glowing just enough to outline the ridges. She and Patrick were in good spirits, still riding that honeymoon glow, teasing each other. Music low on the radio, then they noticed the headlights. It started like nothing unusual. A pair of dim yellow beams appeared in the rear view, climbing fast. Patrick checked the mirror and muttered, "Guy's really flying." He moved to the right a little, giving space, expecting the car to pass, but it didn't instead. It locked onto their bumper, tailgating so close the glare of the lights filled the cabin. Patrick cursed under his breath. He tapped the brakes lightly, a universal sign to back off. The car didn't budge for the next 15 minutes. No matter how Patrick adjusted, slowing down, speeding up, hugging curves tighter, the car stayed glued to them. Just pull over and let him go, Callie urged. So Patrick did. He slowed to a crawl, easing onto the shoulder. Gravel popped under the tires. He gripped the wheel, his jaw set, ready to confront the reckless driver as they passed. Only, they never passed. Patrick looked in the rearview mirror. The headlights were gone, not dimming into the distance. Not turning off, just gone, he swore under his breath, shaking his head. Must have turned off somewhere. But Callie wasn't convinced. There were no turnoffs. No driveways. No side roads for miles. Just sheer cliffs on one side and woods on the other. The tension broke for a while. They laughed nervously, chalking it up to tricks of the dark. But then 20 minutes later, the lights came back. Same distance. Same position. Right on their tail. This time Callie felt her skin prickle. She told Patrick not to stop, not to slow down, just to keep going. He agreed, gripping the wheel tighter, knuckles white. They took curve after curve, climbing deeper into the mountains. But the car stayed locked behind them like a shadow. And then, as suddenly as before it vanished, Patrick pulled off again. This time in the middle of the road, scanning every direction. His heart hammered so hard Callie said she could hear it. The road was empty, dead silent except for the chirp of insects. He whispered, "Where the hell is it?" By then Callie was crying. She begged him to just drive, to get off for 121 as fast as possible. They made it to Harlan just after midnight. Pulling into the first lit gas station they saw, Callie bolted inside, still shaken, while Patrick leaned against the hood trying to calm down. That's when a man sitting outside smoking a cigarette spoke up. "You two look like you seen the sedan." Patrick frowned. "What sedan?" The man exhaled smoke, his eyes tired, almost pitying. "Old black car. Shows up out on 421, rides your bumper, scares the life out of you. Then it disappears." Patrick's stomach dropped. That's exactly what happened. The man nodded like he'd heard it 100 times before. Happens to folks every year. Some say it's just kids messing around, but nah. They'd have to be ghosts themselves to pull the stunts that car pulls. He leaned forward, lowering his voice. They say it started in the 60s. A family in a black sedan went off the cliff up there. Whole car went down, no survivors. Since then, drivers say the sedan follows them, trying to push him over the edge too. Some people don't make it. Patrick and Callie didn't sleep that night. The image of those headlights burned into their minds. The way they blinked out like someone flipping a switch. Even now, Callie swears she sometimes sees that faint glow in her rear view when driving at night. Patrick refuses to take Highway 421 at all, because if you've ever been followed by a car that isn't there, there's no outrunning it. And the worst part? Every year, there are accidents on that highway. Cars that go over. Drivers found crushed at the bottom of the cliffs. Locals say some of them swerved to avoid headlights in their mirror headlights. No one else ever saw. So if you're ever on 421 at night and a car pulls up too close, don't assume it's just a reckless driver. Watch closely, because sometimes you won't see a car at all. Just two lights, glowing steady. Right until the moment they vanish, and when they do, you might be next.